Hi everyone, this is Jess from Geeked Out Nation. I'm joined by my co-editor Jadobi. Say hi.
Hey,
And this is a special podcast we are doing to wrap up Special Edition New York City, or as most people were calling it, New York Comic Con Special Edition, which in hindsight is a better name.
it's true. It is.
It's like you're calling New York City a special edition. It's not. It's just a city, but okay. But yeah, so this is going to be like maybe like 30 minutes, 45 minutes of us just talking about the convention as a whole, our thoughts on how it was run, what the experience was like, and we'll probably get into some things that were discussed at panels. Nothing too major. If you've been just keeping up with what other sites have been linking and talking about. I mean, there was no huge revelations. There's a couple of little things that I'm going to talk about from the Batman panel that they revealed about Batman Day that weren't huge, but were definitely things that I had not read before. I don't know how many of you were watching that probably saw this, that saw what happened at the Batman panel, what was said. I don't think any of that was like crazy breaking news, but they did go into detail a little bit more about what they would actually be doing. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's just the two of us. We went. So I guess what we'll first start off with is what the general feel of going to this convention was. Um, I'm a convention veteran. I've been to a lot of them. Jadobi this was his first. So if you want to talk a little bit about how you felt coming out of this, and you went Saturday, which was definitely the busiest day. Sunday was very very quiet. Past like 1 o'clock on Sunday, there was like no one there.
Yeah.
So I don't know. How did you feel about the convention as your first convention? How did you feel about it? What did you do? Just talk a little bit about that.
I thought it was great. I mean, I didn't go through any of the things that would normally make people's heads explode, like bumping into each other, having to be shooed off because there's a whole bunch of people in the line and you don't have enough time to talk to the writers or artists that you really wanted to see. Um, I mean, I liked it. It wasn't loud. I was able to meet a lot of people. I got pictures with them. I got a I got some posters, some books here and there, some freebies. Um, and I thought just the focus on comics made it a lot better because I know if this was New York Comic Con,
Mm.
I could have easily been overwhelmed, but going to Special Edition NYC, it was easy to transition into that into going into conventions, seeing how everyone else, how all the other veterans spend their time, whether they're cosplaying, whether they're press, whether or just meeting someone. Uh, what I really liked had to hmm, the one thing that I really did like out of all of it was just the how going to a lot of these people like Gail Simone or Greg Pak, a lot of them were very friendly. I'm going to assume it's just because they weren't overwhelmed,
Mhm. You there? Oh, there you are.
but they were open to signing a lot more than just two or three books at a time. They were just a lot more welcoming, and that I found very enjoyable.
Okay, yeah. I mean, in terms of just this being your first con, like, what would you have wanted, if anything, would you have wanted to be different about it?
Let's see. Mm, I'd say definitely just the way that they organized some of the lines going into some of the panels. Just that could have been worked in a little bit better. It just seemed a little chaotic.
Yeah. The thing with the lines is it's bad like that. It's even worse at New York Comic Con. They have no organization to how the lines go. I don't think they ever. I feel like they don't expect that panels will fill up the way that they do. But they do. I've been looking at their Twitter, the New York Comic Con Twitter, and they've been talking about the lines for this year. And the way it appears is that the main hall, the big theater that they use for some of the huge panels, such as they usually use that room for the Batman panel, which gets a huge crowd only because I mean it's Batman. Um, the Avengers panel tends to be in there. Not the movie, the comic.
Hmm.
A lot of the TV shows when they do panels, if they're big shows, I know last year they had the Legend of Korra. That was in the big room. So anyway, my point here is that they're saying what's going to happen is that the main halls, those rooms are going to be cleared out after each panel. But what they're saying is going to happen is that different panels are going to have different lines. So if you come out of a panel and you want to get into the one after that, you'd have to get on that line. How it usually is if you are in the room, you can just stay there all day. No one's kicking you out. The only problem is if you need to use the restroom or anything like that, you can't go. Once you leave the room, unless the person at the door is going to be there a while, they'll let you stay. But no. So it looks like they're going to clear out the room and different lines are going to be for different things. So it's possible that some panels are not going to be crazy to get into because you can't, the line won't be just to get into the room. The line will be, I want to see that actual panel. So I don't know how it's going to work because I can tell you from my own personal experience, I have sat in panel rooms for a couple of hours because there was a certain panel I wanted to see, and if I didn't stay, if I didn't go there an hour early to sit through the other one, I knew I wasn't getting a seat. And I'm hoping that this will alleviate that problem. I think at this con the lines were okay. The panel lines, the only one that got really full was the Marvel Next Big Thing panel. That
Hmm.
was a line. Rightfully so because the Marvel Next Big Thing panel is always about a lot of different things pertaining to what Marvel's doing, and those are usually the panels that are hard to get into, um, at least for comics. I mean, TV shows and movies are a whole different story. Though obviously those appeal to a wider audience, so that's always hard. I mean, I've only been to one TV panel ever, and it was for a show I didn't watch.
That must have been
So
dreadful.
that and I like missed half of it. It was for 666 Park Ave, and I mean, I was only going in there because right after that was the Marvel video games panel, and I was really into. That was the year they were showing Deadpool footage, and Stan Lee ended up showing up, which was like seeing Jesus. Yeah, so at this convention, the panels were fine. I think Sunday's panels on the enjoyment scale, I think I liked Sunday's panel a little bit more than Saturday's panel, and that was only because I had a more emotional fan connection to what was going on Sunday. There was the Batman 75 anniversary panel, which I enjoyed a lot. That was with Gail Simone, Greg Pak, James Tinian, and Francis Manapul. So that was awesome because it was like a lot of Batman people who like are writing Batman right now, so they know what's going on and they could tease things. It wasn't like, oh, I wrote Batman 20 years ago, so I'm just gonna talk about how much I like Batman. And then the Marvel 75 panel ended up just being a Peter David, Chris Claremont spotlight. There was very little talk about anything Marvel 75th anniversary related. The only thing they teased, which I'm gonna upload to the site, are the special one shots they're gonna do set in the Marvel 100th anniversary. And they showed there is like a special Marvel 75 book coming out. They're going to do an omnibus,
Huh.
and yeah, of the best Marvel stories ever. And if you guys are watching this, an omnibus is huge. So this is not going to be
That's
like,
a
oh, let's just
brick.
yes, it's not going to be, oh, let's just put this single little one shot, one issue in here. No, they're going to put things like Days of Future Past in there, and um things like the Infinity Gauntlet. Like those are going in this omnibus. And what they're doing is there's a email there's an email address, I believe it's marvel75@marvel.com, and you can email them before June 23rd, and you can give them your list of the best Marvel books to ever be written, and it might get in the omnibus, and then you'll feel like you have a little bit of a extra reason to go buy it. I mean, obviously, a lot of people might say, "Oh, well, I have all these in trades," but omnibuses are beautiful. They are these huge books. Like the binding is always so great. The pages are usually high quality because they're very expensive books. Um, and it'll be a great gift for any like diehard Marvel fan, and it'll have a lot of different eras. I'm sure they're going to balance it out because I'm pretty sure they're getting a lot of Avengers and X-Men, and they're gonna want to throw some Spider-Man in there. They're gonna want to throw some there's some more of the cosmic stuff, maybe some Guardians of the Galaxy, some original Captain Marvel in there, Cancerverse stuff, all of that. Um, but that's like the cool thing the Marvel panel on Sunday revealed. I mean, I don't know how much it's gonna cost. Omnibuses are usually very expensive, but this might be worth it. And I mean, I don't know. I guess if I were nominating something, I'd probably nominate a lot of X-Men and Avengers because I feel like those are the foundations of Marvel.
Definitely.
I'm sure the night Gwen Stacy died is gonna be in there because Spider-Man. And they also they showed this Alex Ross cover for this special Marvel 75th anniversary book. They're gonna do this one shot, and it's Spider-Man coming out of a newspaper, and there's a guy reading a comic book. That's all they said about it. They won't say what it's gonna be, what it's gonna deal with. It's just they just posted that. They just showed that one cover, and all the Marvel 100 things, and the Guardians of the Galaxy one was pretty interesting because Groot was older. Rocky Raccoon did not look a day over the age that he is now, and Gamora was wearing Peter Quill's mask.
What?
Yeah, she had his mask on. I'm gonna upload that to the site, so you guys are gonna want to check that out later. I mean, that was an interesting one. That was definitely an interesting one. Um, as I mentioned, I've been to a lot of
I just
conventions.
wish I was.
Oh, for that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
I
not.
really wish I was there for the Valiant War.
I got into the last part of that. Um, they're bringing back the original Quantum and Woody like team.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm guessing I'm not really reading Quantum and Woody, but I'm guessing the current series going on doesn't match up to what the original series was because they were mentioning that this new series that's going to start with the original team, they're much older. There's a new Quantum running around. And there's a lot of changes, and they also announced that the original Quantum and Woody run, the entire thing, is going to be an omnibus, marking their first ever foray into real high quality omnibuses. And they said that there's going to be more coming down. First, they're starting with Quantum and Woody to mark the return of the original creative team. They also teased some stuff about Shadow Man that you don't know where it's going,
Hmm.
and it's not going to be a matter of what. It's not going to be a matter of where's he going to go now. It's going to be a matter of what is going on. I don't know. I don't know what that means. I'm not a big Valiant person.
I've always I've always been
But
here and there with Shadow Man. It, you just never know the direction that story's going to take.
yeah, they said it was going to be huge. It was going to be something that people were not gonna not expect at all. He said no one in the audience, no one reading the book is going to figure out where this is going because people were asking about, as you had mentioned to me a few times, that they only run a certain amount of series at any given time, and so people were asking, what's going to happen with Shadow Man, and that's where that conversation
Yeah.
went. Um, yeah, and they gave away if it's really they were talking about Archer and Armstrong, and they were talking about how the delinquents is gonna get started, and that uh it's not exactly gonna be how everyone thinks it's gonna be because they won't say how, but Quantum and Woody are gonna become bounty hunters.
What?
They're gonna be not I quote not heroes for hire, but heroes for cash. um, so they were talking about that, and they talked about Archer and Armstrong, and they were saying that if you went to the Valiant booth with the special password, which just happened to be AssMap, which
Really?
if you've seen the previews for the Delinquents and Archer and Armstrong, there's two pieces on a map that just happen to look like a butt, and and each team has a separate piece, so they're bringing them together, and that's kind of what the catalyst for the story is. So if you went, you got this, which is like a variant of Rye 1. It's
What?
gold, and I don't know if this is like a first printing. I didn't know. I was just really excited about it because I read the digital version and I enjoyed it, and I like Matt Kint a lot, so I was excited about that. But yeah, so they gave us away for telling them ass map. Which, let me tell you, as someone that enjoys very off-color humor, I was very happy to go pick up a free comic book for saying ass map.
That's- that must have been a priceless moment.
It was. I just walked up to the table and I was like, "Hey, I heard if I give you guys the password, I get something for free." And the guy's like, "What's the password?" And I was like, "Ass map. Where's my free thing?" uh, I mean, I wasn't expecting it to be like this cool variant. I was just expecting it to be like a keychain or something. But that again, for people who aren't looking, it's gold, which is like special. And
Yeah,
I mean, it's just a beautiful book. I mean, Rye is cool.
really
Um,
is.
yeah, Rye is a cool character. The story is so different and unique that he's out. It doesn't even. It's not even now. It's all these years from now. Like nothing.
4,180.
Yeah, it's just not. It's and I mean, right now people have been saying and what I've personally been reading. Like right now is a good time to get into Valiant.
Mhm.
I mean, there's stuff that you've missed out on. Unity 8, which I've never read that series before. I only picked it up because it's a tie-in to Armor Hunters, and I figured I have it, so why not? And it's very easy to follow. So right now is a really good time to get into Valiant if you're looking for new
It
books
was
to read. I
funny.
mean, they don't put out as much as other publishers. They don't put out as much as other publishers, but I mean, Jadobi could talk about them even more. Like, God,
Yeah.
I mean, you're a reader.
Yeah, they only yeah, usually
Yeah, I mean,
you're only gonna get about two issues a week. Yeah, about 2 issues a week.
yeah,
Like this week you have Unity number 8 and Harbinger number 24. And Unity number 8 is very funny, so definitely pick up that
yeah. I mean, it's easy to
issue.
follow. It's easy to follow. They just started a big event, which is only 4 issues.
Hmm.
So, you're not going to be stuck reading this series till like December. It's only like 4 issues. Main thing.
Now the
Oh, go ahead.
yeah. Now the reason I really like the reason I really thought it sucked and I missed the Valiant event. I mean panel is just for the fact that they announced a Bloodshot movie. It's like
Yeah.
I would have never expected that to happen, and really, he's the perfect character to try this for. Maybe they could have done Quantum and Woody, and it would have been something funny. But with Bloodshot, you get something that's just action packed and intense. And as I said before, he's like Valiant's version of Wolverine. I mean,
Mhm.
the only difference is that he needs the protein. He needs his proteins in order to heal.
Mhm.
Um, So I think he could actually compete with someone like Wolverine in terms of action heroes.
Yeah, it's gonna be. I mean, hopefully this doesn't turn into. I don't want to jinx it, but hopefully it's not Spawn.
Yeah.
Because the thing is that you have somebody that's not Marvel, that's not DC making a movie, and the last time that really happened was Spawn, and it was awful. I mean, we've come a long way since Spawn, but you get the gist of what I'm saying. So,
Yep.
um, the other big thing that was talked about was the death of Archie at the Archie panel. And that was a small crowd. They did that in a much smaller room. They showed a lot of variant covers, and they talked about the importance of the character dying. The variant covers were gorgeous.
They
Like
were
if
very.
if I have the chance and if I could afford to drop the extra cash on a book I don't really read, well, a book I'm not caught up on, I would very much consider buying that Adam Hughes cover with the. You guys have probably seen it, the one with the soda float in the middle of the table, and Betty and Veronica with the big empty gap in between them. Um, yeah, and I also just want to clear up about this whole death of Archie thing, as they did at the panel. Life with Archie, this is not an in continuity book. This is not like teenage Archie. This whole story starts with him walking down memory lane and taking two separate routes. One in which he marries Betty, one in which he marries Veronica. So every month the book comes out. It's done like it's big. It's like a magazine. And it's two stories. They're not connected. One part of it is his life with Betty. The other side is him and his life with Veronica. The stories are very different. They don't ever converge on each other at all because that's the whole point of the story. It's even shown that this is not really happening. This is an alternate universe. So this is the Archie that's dying, not the Archie from the digest and the long-going single issues that are up to 670 almost at this point. Not that Archie. That's not the Archie that's dying. Um, it's just a finality to this story. I don't know about how you feel about Jadoi, but I think it's a big deal. Um,
It's a big deal. It's a very
yeah,
big deal. I mean, because this isn't the Archie. This isn't because as you said, this is an alternate. This is an alternate story. This isn't teenage Archie, and a lot of people who grew up with Archie surely would find this story a lot more interesting than that one, especially since this one has a lot more. It's a more mature story. That's basically the way I describe it, and yeah, I think that's something a lot more people could probably connect to, and and just the fact that it could actually branch off into something like Sabrina is good enough reason for me to get into it.
yeah, that's what I wanted to bring up. I mean, on the death of Archie, this is a character that's been around longer than most other characters have been around. And yes, he's wholesome, and their adventures are kind of silly. But here's the thing: Archie is as close to a real life comic book as you're ever gonna get. This is a comic book about people living ordinary lives. That's your book. And I talk about this a lot. Image puts out so many really awesome stories, just that are so out there. But what we don't have is something that's like the equivalent to Mad Men. It's not a straight up character drama. Archie gives you that. It's just not serious. You see stories of oh, Betty and Veronica and Archie are fighting over who he's gonna take to the dance, and it's very cutesy, but it is at its core about regular people, and you don't see that in any book. There's always some kind of supernatural element or a superpowered element or just odd things that never happen in real life, and we do read comics to escape from that, but it's always kind of cute to see well, this is like real life. It's cute. And I mean, Afterlife with Archie is this whole dark thing, which they're now going to make a Sabrina series. So that's the
Yes.
other thing we could briefly discuss is the Sabrina series. Set in the 60s, it is a horror supernatural comic. Um, It is not connected to Afterlife with Archie. It's not connected to the TV show, and it's not connected to anything she's done before, which, like Teenage Archie, is very wholesome. And when I say wholesome, I don't mean conservative, because Archie does have different ethnic backgrounds, different religions. Kevin Keller is a huge character, and he's gay. It's more wholesome, where it's more about, oh, Sabrina can't get up on time, so she casts a spell to make her wake up on time all the time, and things like that. Who are you gonna take to the dance? Silly things like that. So this is not that. This is horrible things are gonna happen to Sabrina, and yeah, I mean, I'm excited to read this. Um, it's gonna be twisted. I don't know if people were ready for Afterlife with Archie when that hit, but oh my god, that is good. It's just very strange seeing such characters like this get ripped apart by zombies, and so I don't know what we're gonna have in store for Sabrina. I mean, I'm very excited to read this. How do you feel about it, GW?
I'm very excited. I mean, I like the whole dark supernatural thing. That's the reason why when it comes to DC, I'm always you always find me on the dark mystical side with all those people like Constantine, Zatanna, and them. So when I see something like Sabrina, it instantly grabs my attention. I'm going to pick up that first issue to see what it has in store.
Awesome. So I guess the next thing we can turn our attention to, just very briefly, so I want to get more into the actual experience of it all. The other thing that was announced was the Batman panel, and they talked about the things they have planned for the actual 75th anniversary. They showed off the cover that's coming out, um, which is awesome when they went into detail of what's in it. It's going to be a complete reprint of Detective 27. It's going to be an actual reprint of the first Batman tale, and then there's going to be this. They didn't go too much into detail of it, but there's going to be this reimagine. There's going to be this different reimagining of the entire thing, also printed in there, as well as the reimagined version they did a few years ago in that hardcover trade that they did, in honor of that particular book. I have not actually read that. I have read the original Detective 27. I have read that. I don't own it, but I have read it. So I am interested in getting that. Also, most important on that cover is Bill Finger's name. So DC has put him there. So they're not. It's not gonna fix everything because his name's not on the Gotham TV show, and the characters that are being brought into that show are his, and the city is really his creation. So to have all that and not have his name on it is upsetting a lot of people, and rightfully so. But they talked about how stores, I believe it's July 23rd, stores are going to be celebrating Batman Day. Lots of free giveaways, special Batman bags, masks. They have a Greg Capullo version of the cowl, so like only up to like right here, and then the Frank Miller version. Um, I think there's another one, but I can't remember. It might be Jim Lee. I don't remember. Yeah, and then they talked about things that are coming down for the Batman series as a whole. They didn't go too much into detail. They said a lot more will be revealed closer to the Future's End stuff, because once that passes, the main Batman title is going to begin its next big storyline, which we know nothing about. And
Nope.
it's only June, and there's a long time to wait till we really know anything about it. But Scott Snyder has tweeted that he started it, so that's something. They also mentioned that libraries are going to be doing a lot of Batman stuff too, which is pretty cool because I got into comics through my public library because I just went to their graphic novel section and start checking things out that way. So it's a good resource, and bring more stuff to public libraries, keep them open. I mean, that's really all, and a lot of it went into talking about favorite characters, storylines. They're going to be doing the one issue for $1, for the first issues for $1 again. for Batman and Son, Dark Knight Rises, and they said there's going to be a lot more. They're just not ready to announce it just yet. Um, so I don't know how you feel about that. I think they're doing a lot. I'm gonna admit I think DC's doing a lot more for Batman this year than they did for Superman.
That's exactly what I was just thinking.
It's a shame. And that was talked about. They kind of stepped around it a little bit because someone had asked in the audience, why they didn't say why are you doing less, but they did say that why is it that 75 years later Batman is the more popular character than Superman, and the answer really was that like Batman is Francis Manapul, I think he summed it up really nicely. He said Superman is not us. We can't be Superman, but we can be Batman. And Batman was only born out of horrible tragedy, and a lot of people in their lives have experienced tragedy. And that's kind of what he represents, and that's why they think he's the fan favorite right now. I don't know, because I feel this way about the Fantastic Four, too. Superman was the foundation for DC, Fantastic Four, foundation for Marvel. And to not really do up their anniversaries the way they should be just because that's not what people are into is just kind of like, come on.
Yeah. Give them their due.
Yeah. So what I just want to get back onto now is more of, how the con actually went. And we heard from Jadobi about his first time experience. I've been to a lot of Comic-Cons, and New York Comic-Con is the one I've been to the most. This convention needs to keep happening. I was able to go through boxes of comics at merchandise stands without feeling like I needed to rush. I was able to really look at everything they had. I bought a few things. I bought a bunch of Dazzler books. And it was refreshing. There was a very tiny line on Sunday to get in, and that was at like 9:30. It was at its biggest point, and it really wasn't that many people. No pushing. I never realized how long the walk from Artist Alley to the panel rooms were until this convention. There's no pushing or shoving. You just have like a straightaway hallway. Anybody that's been to the Javits Center knows what I'm talking about. You go to New York Comic Con at the Javits Center in October. You will take maybe 20 minutes to get from one end of the building to the other because of the just sheer amount of people that are there. Cosplayers were taking professional photographs. They weren't getting pushed out of the way to do that. They looked like they had enough space to do what they needed to do because there's professional cosplayers and then there's the rest of us. So,
Right.
Yeah, but I think the most amazing part of this convention was that at New York Comic Con, you do get the bigger names. You do have Jeff Johns doing a signing. You do have Jim Lee doing a signing. You have Robert Kirkman doing a signing. You have Jonathan Hickman. You have Dan Slott. But they don't have booths in Artist Alley. You can't just go to Artist Alley, walk by their booth, ask to, just talk, just shake their hand, give them your books, and take a picture with them. Can't do that during New York Comic Con. Every big name who has a table at Artist Alley has a line. It's just how it is. And even worse is the big names don't have tables. You have to get there at a very early time just to stand in line to get on the line to get the free ticket. And then that's capped. And even the Image booth, when they do a signing that's announced without free tickets, that still gets crazy. So it's very hard to meet creators and have the time to actually talk to them. At this convention, Greg Pak's table had no one at it. What is that? Had Greg Pak, of all the writers, have no line at his table? There weren't that many people. It was not crowded. You had the chance to talk to people without one of the staff members of the convention saying, "Okay, that's enough. We got like 500 people waiting behind you. You have to go." And as someone that's only had the New York Comic Con experience, it was like going to a convention for the first time. Because
Yes.
when you go to New York, yes, exactly. When you go to New York Comic Con, there's more than comics there. So you're competing with people who are trying to just get upstairs to the showroom floor so they can score free stuff from like Penguin publishers. So you have all the book fans or tech people who are there for all the tech stuff that's there, the toy stuff. And then let's not even get into the fact that there are hour-long waits to play a video game demo. It's Comic-Con, but there's lines for video game demos. So you have all these people that are there, and not to mention movies. And last year there was a very small True Blood panel, a very small Game of Thrones panel. The only people who were there from Game of Thrones was the guy who played the commander of the Night's Watch before he got killed by the usurpers. I can't remember his name. I apologize. But he was a white guy with the white beard. He's a bit stocky. He was the one that handpicked Jon Snow to work with him. Um, he was the only one that was there, and I think one of the producers on the show was there. And that's all going to change this year. Um, I feel like New York Comic Con is really going to turn into San Diego, where the big panel halls are going to be for movies and TV, and not really the comics. So this was a nice thing to have, to be able to go to a comic book convention and it just be comic books. And let's not be jerks about it. I saw this critique from a lot of people who were saying, "Oh, the names aren't that big." Are you kidding me? Greg Pak was there, Gail Simone was there, Kyle Higgins was there, James Tynion was there, Francis Manapul was there. Those are names. Okay.
There was plenty of people. If I could find, I have 8 photos of people I like that I was able to just walk up to, shake their hands, tell them I love what they're doing,
Mm-hmm.
get something signed, take a picture with them. So there was enough people to see there, and I
There
didn't even
really
get to
was.
everybody. I still didn't even get to everyone I wanted to meet.
I went home that Saturday, and when I got up in the morning on Sunday, I said, I, this came into my mind. I don't know why, but I felt like, why am I going? I kind of met everyone I wanted to meet. But then I realized I didn't, because there's a lot of people who aren't famous that are there that I admire. Like I met Yale Stewart, who does the JL8 comic, the comic strip. If you're not reading that, go do it. It's adorable. Basically, it's the Justice League characters as 8-year-olds, and it's the cutest thing. It's very funny. Um, Jenny Frison was there. People who are reading Revival and read Sonia, they know her covers. Um, these people may not be famous, but they're very talented, and you've seen their work. Like, I got to meet Mike Del Mundo, the artist on Elektra, which was a huge deal. I mean, because his work is gorgeous. I met Tony S. Daniel, who's doing the art for Superman, Wonder Woman.
David
Um,
Marquez.
David Marquez was there. Sarah Pichelli was there. And I think that people didn't see that someone like Scott Snyder was there, and they thought it was not worth going to. And I think that's really unfair to say, because if you're a comic book fan, then you want to meet the people who are doing the books that you like. I mean, even Paul Mounts was there, and he's a colorist. And he had a very nice following at his table because he does the colors on the Harley Quinn covers, which is a huge selling series. So, people were like, "Oh, hey, you do the work for such and such." And then there's also the fact that there's smaller publishers and smaller independent books that were there. Like, me and Jadobi, we're friendly with and fans of this comic called Stronghold, and we were able to meet the guys for the first time after talking to them so much on Twitter. And we got to meet them, and that was awesome because we were able to just be there and be like, "Hey, like, how's it going?" and talk about great ideas that they might have, and things like that. And it's great because as somebody that is still kind of new to doing the press thing, I was able to go and say, "Hey, could I get an interview with you?" New York Comic Con, that's impossible. You've got to call the publicity people from the sites through email and things like that, and say, hey, listen, is there a way that we can talk about uh, talk about doing the interview with you? And it's just it's awesome. I mean, I don't know how you felt about that.
I know that's what I liked as well. I mean, because especially when it came to talking about the interview with Gail Simone, they were very willing up front to allow you to have that opportunity.
Yeah, yeah, it was very cool to meet Gail Simone, especially because she knew who people were from just knowing she knew who people were from Twitter and things like that, and that was very cool because you don't really think about that kind of stuff when you're on Twitter. You don't think people are gonna actually remember who you are. It's just it's a crazy experience. It's just a crazy experience. I
Yeah,
mean,
like
oh yeah, go ahead.
yeah, like I know I felt the same way when I went up to David Messina and he recognized me. There's the poster I got signed up there. He does the
Mhm.
bounce. He knew me right away. Even remembered how to even remembered how to spell my name.
Yeah, and it's just it's an experience, and I think what happens at smaller conventions like this is that they have the opportunity to take the time. It's at New York Comic Con. You have to realize there are a lot of people who are trying to get in, and you know they don't really it's not really their fault. It's just that they want to make sure they get a chance to see as many people as they can, so they don't get to take a photo with you. You usually have a book limit at all the signings that I've done at New York Comic Con. I've had a book limit, and at this convention I brought a giant backpack and was able to get everything signed. So I mean, it's something I hope they do again. Because I definitely feel like I would go to this one every year. And I think they didn't sell out tickets. They were still selling tickets there at the door. But I think even if they had sold more, if they'd sold maybe 200 or 300 more passes, it just was not huge. And it's nice because it makes you it's good and bad at the same time, I feel, because then you realize when you go to New York Comic Con how many people are there that aren't into comics.
Mhm.
And you're just like, why are you here? Nobody cares about The Walking Dead. Just go away.
I was thinking the same thing. It's just so overwhelming because none of this really interests you, and yet it takes up more space than the comics themselves.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah. No, go
yeah,
ahead.
and then going to special edition NYC, everything is right there. The comics are right in front of you. There's no obstacles around. Straightforward comics, comics, comics.
Yeah, it's kind of annoying when you think about it now because I mean I'm not trying to bash people who go to New York Comic Con because I go there too, and of course you enjoy seeing some of the other stuff, but then you realize that like comics really are not what's bringing people there, because if it was, there would have been a lot more people at this convention, and there weren't. And this was a cheap convention. It was $30 for one day, and no one was charging for their signature. The only one that was charging, from what I saw, was Chris Claremont, and I won't go into do too much about that, but it makes sense given how little he actually receives from a lot of the X-Men things that happen. So I can understand him doing that. But a lot of them were selling their like single issues for $4, and they would sign it for you, and then you could take a picture with them and just like hang out and talk to them. And I mean, you cannot get better than that. You don't get that experience in New York Comic Con. You just don't. It's so overwhelming. I think if I had to say there was a drawback to the entire thing, I honestly think the panels could have been a little bit better.
I agree.
Um, my only thing was it felt like they were rehashing things they'd already announced, and I wasn't expecting like Marvel especially. I wasn't expecting them to drop any huge bombshell, but being that this was the first one, and that they're getting ready to announce stuff for their event Axis, I would have liked if they shown something about that, something we didn't already know, or talked about Original Sin a bit more, stuff we didn't know. And I guess that has a lot to do with the fact that some of those creators just weren't there. But Tom Brevoort was there, and he is the editor, so he knows what's coming. So it would have been nice to get a little bit more of that. And I think, though, my favorite panel was the Reimagining the Female Hero panel, and that was because it was not them announcing stuff. It was just like an honest conversation about female characters, female superheroes, and given the climate of the world of comics right now, I think that was a very good thing to do. I mean, I don't know how you feel about the panels.
Yeah, I agree. That's pretty much. I mean, cause I even with the Marvel panel, it seemed like we kind of it just, especially when it came to slides and everything, it just went so fast. I mean, they got through a lot, but a
Hmm.
lot of it we did already know. So the only way we could have really gotten much new is if we asked ourselves, and even
Hmm.
then there wasn't that much information we could get from questions.
No, there wasn't. And I mean, like the Marvel 75 panel really wasn't a 75th anniversary panel. It was really just a spotlight on Peter David and Chris Claremont, which was fine. It's just that's not what it was billed as. So, I mean, it was a bit weird. I think going forward, I would like to see them do better panels because I do enjoy going to panels. I know that there's people who go to these conventions and never enter a single panel room. I can't do that. I the showroom floor only has so much that I want to see. And if I have a 4-day pass, I'm not going to run to Artist Alley and meet everybody in one day. I'm just not, because then what's the point of me getting a 4-day pass? There isn't any. Um, so I do go to panels, and you can win. I mean, DC panels give away stuff. This one was no different. They were giving away like the Aquaman cosplayer, and there was a Batman Beyond. They were given um I forgot what book it was, but they were given autographed Jim Lee autographed comics.
Really.
Yeah.
Ah,
And people who asked questions were given the 3D covers from last year. This one person got Harley Quinn and Joker's daughter, which I don't know how many people were paying attention to eBay at that time. But the Joker's daughter and Harley Quinn covers were going for quite a lot of money. So for a $3.99 book, I mean, I saw some selling for $50, not
really.
graded. Yes. So I mean, it's a $4 book, and like $50 may not seem like a whole lot right away, but $50 is $50. That's a four. That's a pretty nice profit off of a $4 book. So, it was a good prize for them. There were no huge prizes given away, but DC panels are always fun because they give away prizes, and then a lot of the time at New York Comic Con, the panels do announce things that haven't been announced yet. So if you're there, it's kind of like, oh, cool, I was there. So you get to see the crowd react to certain things, which is always fun. I know when last year's Batman panel, Death of the Family, the year before that, Death of the Family had just started, and they had shown that Nightwing cover where he had the Joker's face. And the crowd was like going kind of insane about that. And then last year was kind of cool at the big DC panel because there was a lot of talk about them killing Nightwing. So you had cosplayers going to that panel dressed as Blue Nightwing, criticizing what was happening, asking questions. So you don't go to those panels. I feel like you're missing out. Especially if you're only going for comics. Like
Hmm.
I'm not a gamer, so those video game lines do nothing for me. I'm not really a tech person. Those lines do nothing for me. Um, I don't spend a ton of money at conventions. I'll probably buy a couple of pop vinyl figures, look through some bargain bins on books. But I don't spend a ton of money, so a lot of the merchandise stands, I'm not on those. But the comic booths, artist alley, panels, that's where I spend all my time at. Um, so I guess that would be my criticism is that the panels were not great. Um, I mean, going forward, I'd like to see them improve the panels that we get.
Mhm. Yeah, most likely just from the overall reaction this from this year's, maybe they'll try a bit harder next year.
Yeah, I mean, it was the first one. I think overall they did a really good job, and I thought, I mean, I had a lot of fun. Sunday flew by, but I think 2 days was enough, especially since they didn't have like this person was only going to be here this day and things like that, and they didn't have any. They had in booth signings, but not crazy huge names. Like they didn't have like Jim Lee or Jeff Johns at a signing. Those that would have been a whole thing. But I do hope that in future years that they're gonna get huge names like this or iconic people like Chris Claremont was there. And if you're an X-Men fan, meeting him is a huge deal because after every reboot, a lot of the things he did still count. And he
Hmm.
created some of the most popular characters in X-Men existence, including Emma Frost and Kitty Pryde. Those are his creations. And I don't know a single X-Men fan that is not a fan of one or both. So it is a big deal that he would be there and that he was talking to people and that he did a panel and he was very nice and very funny. And I mean, we had a great experience with Gail Simone, which was awesome. That that she knew who we were and we were able to interview her and we hung out with her for a little while. I mean, that was beyond amazing. Um, so yeah, I mean, I guess my final thoughts on this would be that I hope that they do this again next year, especially since it looks like New York Comic Con is going to become like a South by Southwest type of event, which I'm not thrilled about. It's already so much to take in just 4 days, and to extend it out to having other events during a week might just be a lot to handle. Um, but I do hope they do this again because the New York City area needs a purely comic convention with creators that people know and will line up to see. Um, so yeah, I overall I think I'd give it like a 9 of 10. The panels kind of let me down. They weren't bad, but they just were not as great as they could have been, and the options weren't. They weren't great.
Yeah, yeah, I would give it around the same for the same reasons. And of course I liked it a lot more just because the interactions with the writers that I probably would not have gotten if New York Comic Con was the first one I went to.
All right, yeah. So I guess that wraps up our special edition New York City um, coverage. We have 3 interviews that will be going up on the site this week. One with Gail Simone, one with Greg Pak, and one with Morning Glories artist Joe Aizma, which was really exciting. All 3 of them were so much fun to do. I'm also going to post up an article with the Marvel 75 photos. They're a little bright because it was on a screen, but they're definitely seeable, and the creative teams are listed on each of those one-shots. And obviously, it's only Monday, so check out the site this whole week for new reviews, and always check us out on iTunes. This will be up there because this will be under the Comic Crossovers podcast banner. You could also just see this. This will be on the site. So if you just want to watch the video again, you can do that too. And as always, you can follow me on Twitter at Camacho Jess. I talk a lot about comics, movies, TV, everything. You want to tell them where they can find you, Jolie?
You can find me on Twitter at NewGenXmen, pretty much for the same reasons. And no, I do not do everything X-Men.
only Cyclops.
Just Cyclops.
Only gushing over Cyclops. All right,
Yes.
so anyone that was watching this live, thanks for tuning in. And Don't forget Thursday to tune in to the official Comic Crossovers podcast, where we're going to talk about some stuff that happened during the week in comics. Probably talk a little bit about the DC solicitations since those came out. And there appears to have been some big Marvel thing that just came out. So we'll probably talk about that. But yeah, so just check us out on there. Follow us on Twitter. Go on the website. All that jazz. And we'll talk to you later. Bye.
See ya.